Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. This is the fourth channeling in a series of 8. And we're presenting in these channelings different tools, if you want to call them that. Some even call them gifts, that are different energies that are needed for different times. We have said in many channels before, specifically the 3 before this one, that this particular planet is undergoing a shift. And the shift actually promotes an evolution of consciousness. And some would say, well, what does that actually mean? Do we get smarter? Consciousness is not a measure necessarily of brilliance or smartness that you could measure on an IQ test. Instead, it's a measure of wisdom. Reaction is part of wisdom. What a human does in light of what is around them is a measure of wisdom. When humans understand a bigger picture, they're less apt to push a dysfunctional envelope of emotion your way. Let me put that in words perhaps that are better. Humans are less apt to react in anger. But the tool that we are going to examine this day, and the one that we're going to talk about later in the Circle of 12 this day, has to do with what was even discussed in the questions, in the discussion that you've heard so far. It has to do with reactions during stress and drama. Specifically, what we will call drama. Now that has a lot of faces, dear ones. If somebody is angry and you step into an angry situation, whether they're angry at you or someone else, you are stepping into the energy of drama. If somebody is worried or stressed or weeping, that is the drama that is there for them, that you may step into as well. If you are doing absolutely nothing, but around you there are angry people, angry at you, angry at something else, angry just to be angry, that's drama. You find yourself in these situations without ever creating them. And you know it. The question is this: how do you react to it? Now, we have discussed many times the light worker's reaction when drama is then focused at them. But that's not what we're speaking of. We're talking about holding peace during drama and stress around you, whether it's yours or someone else's. And the reason we put this way is because you know that if there is drama in the room, you are not apart from it. A human being actually broadcasts how they feel, and you know that. Have you ever gone into a place, perhaps, where something was a little off, or there had just been an argument, and you can feel it immediately? This is what we speak of. The tool is this: can you hold your peacefulness and your mastery during drama? When there is stress around you that is with everyone, for perhaps even a common reason, the ship is sinking, and you're on it and they're on it. Can you hold peace over this so that you can think straight? We've always said that one of the tests is of the mother who gets the call in the middle of the night, and it's the police. And the first thing they think is there's been an accident. Is my son or daughter all right? What's going on next? And at that second, before you even hear what's next, what do you do? Quite often, human beings are wired to go into fear, and you have to go beyond that so that you'll not go into a stressful attitude and be able to think in a mature fashion. But beyond that, this has to do with the light worker and what others will see you do when all around them is the stress of the moment. Or perhaps they will see what you do when the stress is pointed at you. And I want to tell you something, that what you do in those situations is seen by all. It's noted. It's recognized. There will be those who will see you not react or go into an observing mode and actually think there's something wrong with you because you didn't react. Get ready for that. They'll say, you're supposed to be angry, and you're not. You're supposed to be afraid, and you're not. What's wrong with you? Don't you feel anything? Have you heard that before? There are those who will mistake maturity and wisdom for weakness. Have you seen that before? It doesn't matter. That is an old paradigm of perspective, developed in an old energy, used in an old energy, and even some societies are based on it. They'll say, don't smile too much, or you're hiding something. Can you see, dear ones, how this might be difficult? Even when you do it, even if you dissolve a situation in your maturity, there will be those who will look back and say it's a sign of weakness. This is the new power. In this, a new age, a new time. So truly, the tool that is being presented today is the tool of you being able to have peace during stress. How does this feel to you right now? Can you picture this for yourself? Can you practice it? Now, this may be the key. How does someone practice having peace during stress? And you will say, well, you have to wait for a stressful time. Really? Can you simulate it? And you would say you would be a fool to simulate stress. Why would you ever do that? And the answer is to practice. What if you could simulate being stressed over a situation, something that would bother you, and then practice your reaction to it and coming to a very peaceful place, breathing, doing the things that you know how to do, and coming to a place where you'll say, it doesn't matter. I am at peace with myself and all the things around me. This is practicing mastery. It's the first time I have ever said to anyone, practice stress. But it's not practicing stress, it's practicing the result of stress. And that is a peacefulness and a countenance. What about a coherence with your soul? Coherence with your soul. And this would mean you're completely and totally at peace with everything, no matter what. Now, if you think clearly for a moment, isn't that what you've seen the masters do? Isn't that what they teach that the masters do? And the answer is yes. Now, that's always been a master who is sitting in the lotus position, perhaps with their eyes closed, and contemplating that which is beautiful. And you don't have time for that. And that's why this is a rehearsal in stress. Think on your feet for a moment. How would you react? in whatever situation you can think that might be stressful for you, that might have drama around you regarding perhaps more than one person. A fight is in progress of words. What do? How can you not be involved, but instead have coherence with both of them in a way where you broadcast your peace to those who are arguing or fighting in words? Do you see what I'm saying? The more you put yourself in these positions, in a rehearsal of these things, the more comfortable you will be when it comes right down to doing it. It perhaps is one of the hardest things you're going to learn because it requires emotions be controlled. And you convert that which is perhaps in reaction, frustration, and anger into peace. When you have to then negate fear completely and then turn it into love. These things are doable, and they're going to be noticed. There'll be more. What a gift for some of you. A wonderful new tool. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner, I wish you to go slow. Measure the words. Make sure it's correct as it comes in. And so we are going to say that this one is where we wish to bring you information for the future. Some will say this is a science channel. It isn't. But there are those who may say, well, I want scientists to hear what you had to say today, Kryon. And so right now, I may have those listening who have been told to listen. If this is you listening at this point in time, you're listening in the future. But of course, you don't think it's the future. For you, it's now. For me, it's now. For the crowd in front of me, it's not now. How do you like it so far? We speak to many. Out of the time frame that you think. This channel may be brought forward later, and this channel may be something that will be brought into a venue you don't expect to prove what you've just discovered. To validate what you know is there now that you did not when the channel was given. Confused yet? It's that kind of a channel. My partner gives chills, for he knows that the information is beautiful. He knows it's appropriate. He knows it's desired, and that humanity wants what is coming now. So he goes slow. I want to talk about a discovery. A discovery that will be made, that is being made, and it happens gradually. And before I discuss what it is or how it works, I want to give you some things to think about. Question: is it possible that there is a template existing in your DNA that carries the secret to youth? A template that isn't simply data. It is part of the molecular structure of multidimensional DNA that can be activated and exposed in certain cases. And when it is, it changes everything about the human being that it belongs to. Is it possible that there is something inside every single molecule of your DNA
that could keep you alive 2, 3, 4 times as long as you're living now? Is there a template of birth? A design that can become chemistry that right now is simply laying there as an instruction set, that is outside of the purview of your DNA's three-dimensional thinking? It's different. What do you think about the prophets who lived 900 years? I jump right to it. I want you to answer the question inside, and if you're a scientist, go ahead and answer it. Foolishness? Reported in many ways, in many places, from different sources, that some of the characters you read about in the scriptures, perhaps, or in the history books, perhaps, lived far longer than any other human beings have ever lived. A few, not one, lived over 600 years. Number one, is it possible? Number two, would there be reasoning from spirit or creative source for that to occur? Number one, is it possible? I am sitting here in the chair telling you it is not only possible, this shows that it was done. In certain cases with certain human beings and with males only, they lived grand lifetimes for the procreation of the race with their consciousness. Simple mechanics. The male seed is fertile to the end. The females are not. It was the man who had to live a very, very long time in order to pass the consciousness through many, many children into a fresh area of the planet that needed that consciousness. Do you believe it? Now you know why. What was the process to keep this man or men alive for that duration? It's simple. They had an activated template of youth. Now, I'm using terminology that is not medical, that is not scientific, and you may have your own. There actually exists right now, I'll tell you it, stay tuned, there actually exists right now a name for this because it's suspected in biology. Number two, when a human being has spontaneous remission, or what some have called spontaneous healing, what occurs? Number one, is it real? Do you believe it? Now you're a little more current, scientist. You've seen it. It's been reported. You believe it because of that. Number two, how did it work? And number two has always been the mystery. And number two has with it a lot of energy. There are those who believe that the consciousness of the individual who was sick brought it about. That is why they call it spontaneous. This would mean that through consciousness alone, and perhaps without knowing it, there was an activation of the template. So fast was it, so amazing was it, that it was beyond that which was recognizable as possible in 3D or in medical history. It's almost like the body cleaned itself, that cellular rejuvenation was accelerated vastly for a few days, for a few weeks, to clean out that which did not belong there to save the life of the individual. Spontaneous, automatic remission of a disease, healing of something that didn't belong there. And it's real. And in the number 2 category, there are those who say, aha, it's the placebo effect. As though the explanation, giving a name, was all that's necessary and you can walk away. Oh, it's just the placebo effect. Let's go do something else. What is the placebo effect? That really should be number 3. The placebo effect is human consciousness through expectation of results, getting the results for no reason except for the expectation. There you have consciousness ruling the chemistry of the body. Full and complete expectation activating the template. Let's talk about a little science. There is a field that is called quantum biology. It's real, it exists, there are those in it, and the premise is this: that biology, like other physics, has quantum areas. Therefore, the molecule itself of DNA or any other molecule must have quantum attributes as well as 3-dimensional attributes. Now, for whatever reason, this is controversial. You expect quantumness in physics. For years, it has belonged to physics, and yet somehow there is a wall, a barrier that gets put there when you talk about biology, as though biology was not physics. But it is. In fact, biology primarily is physics. For chemistry depends upon the very things that quantumness depends on. The spin of the electrons around the atoms, that they come together to create certain kinds of chemistry of life. It is more profound in a life science than one that is not. Question: is it real? Quantum biology, the study of quantumness in biology and life science, is real. What have they discovered? They've discovered that some quantum energies actually change DNA in interesting ways. They don't know why. They don't know what. But when quantum energies of many kinds are applied to chemistry of many kinds, there are reactions. They don't know why. Doctors, let me talk to you. There is a suspicion that within certain molecules, there are things that should be able to be seen and they're not. You see the results of them in quantum experiments, but you cannot see them through an electron microscope. They should exist to create the result of the experiment, and they don't. They're invisible. Dear ones, they're not invisible. They're multidimensional, just as you suspected. So it carries us to this. Therefore, the template that we are discussing inside the human body that exists in many molecules, including that which is DNA, is only visible if it is exposed by a multidimensional force. Let's say it again. In different words, my partner, here it comes again. The suspected energy in certain molecules will show itself when you expose that molecule to other quantum energies. Period. It is the only time when you get to see what is there. And when you start to see it, it will start having cluster patterns. Patterns that you may not recognize because you have not seen it yet in three-dimensional biology. But you've always suspected it. Let's call it what you think it is, the you-thing cluster. The you-thing template, it should be there. When certain experiments are done, it shows itself for a moment and then stops. Some have applied magnetics as the multidimensional force to expose the template. And so the experiment goes like this. You take the mixture, you put certain magnetic fields with it, you take a look at it the best you can with electronic microscopes, and you look for what you suspected was there, and lo and behold, you see a piece of it. It's there. How many years ago did we tell you about magnetics? How many years ago did we tell you that magnetics is a field that's going to be part of biology, and when you come in contact with what is called designer magnetics, and when you learn how to create magnetic fields that are designed and purposely placed, that is when you're going to see things happen, not with simply a magnet. Not good enough. You're going to have to come up with something more. But dear ones, when you do, it will be a multi-dimensional force, which, by the way, magnetism qualifies. A multi-dimensional force will reveal the you-thing molecule's attribute. The template is in everything. The template is in everything. Spontaneous remission is the template being activated in certain cases by the human being's consciousness, either survival or fear or divine intervention. And you've seen it over and over and over. One of the things that's going to happen in biology is the increase in the acknowledgement of quantumness and the beginning study of creating a life force which is now different because it's exposed to quantum energies. Exposing the template for what it is, to be able to be seen even in 3D partially. When exposed correctly, it will show itself. Then things start to move. Now, let's turn the page. And scientists, you can stop now. Because now we're going to talk about things that you will say are eye-rolling to the max. You'll say it couldn't be this way, it just isn't this way. When I reveal what innate really is. The smart body, that which you have called innate, is in total control of the exposure of the you-thing template. When multidimensional forces are applied, innate sees it and exposes what it should expose. Innate is the smart body intelligence that has no source that you can call a source. It is not from your brain. Innate is not a brain function. The brain is a computer that survives with you. You do something, it remembers it. If it hurts you, you don't do it again. You have experiences that help you survive from moment to moment. Your rememberer, that's in your brain. The creative things that happen come from your pineal. We have told you this before. The things that go beyond both of those is part of the triad, which we said involves the heart. The heart is so important. It actually is involved in some of the things that scientists say the brain is doing. It's the heart that's doing it. There were those who say, well, look, you don't have brain functions in the heart. Oh, yes, you do. There's synapse in the heart if you want to look for it. There's magnetism in the heart if you want to look for it. There's all manner of things in the heart. It is not innate. So what is innate? How does it work, and what's going to happen? We've talked in the past about the future of humanity starting to come in differently. That part of what is going to be in the future is children born with a much more advanced innate. In other words, the ability to tie together that which you've experienced the last lifetime and this lifetime, so that you don't make the same mistakes twice. And that is innate. I still haven't told you where it comes from, have I? Oh, I will. Child burns his finger on a stove, never touches a stove for the rest of his life. That's brain function, isn't it? Did the innate have anything to do with it? Oh, yeah. You see, the innate is the smart body agreeing with the brain. It's all integrated. Now listen to this. Here is what the innate, and I'll identify what it is soon. Here's what the innate is going to do with a newborn. The newborn will not touch a stove, because the newborn remembers from the last lifetime what it's like. He carries it over, and you're going to call it instinct. Don't touch the stove. The newborn is going to remember also the mistakes that were made that caused emotional distress and not do them again. The newborn is going to carry in the wisdom from the past life of mistakes. And part of the mistakes appeared emotionally and physically. It was the brain, it might have been the pineal and the heart together, but it's the innate that will tie it together and help the newborn remember it and pass it forward, intact as instinct. Now I'm going to tell you what innate is. And it's confusing, because you will then linearize it. You will not be able to understand how it passes from one life to another, because you don't know how multidimensional things work, especially when it has to do with the soul. Innate is not the soul. See, you were wrong. There's a Hebrew word meaning to ride. And the Hebrew word to ride is Merkaba. And the Merkaba of a human being has really never been defined really accurately. What is it? What does it do? The Merkaba is huge, 8 meters wide. Every human being, here's what it is. It is the multidimensional field which is created by trillions and trillions of DNA molecules. The DNA molecules are identical all through the body, every single one of them, unique to you and identical. That ought to tell you something, because when they get together, if you want to say that, and they're always together, they create a field around the body. The field is a multidimensional field. Spiritually, it's always been seen and known as the Merkaba. Welcome to the innate. Your DNA collectively is what innate is. DNA cannot be taken apart as one thing or another. It is either collective or it is not. Let me tell you something. DNA decides when you die. Innate decides when you die. The field around you will give up the ghost. It's not the brain. Sure, if the heart stops, nothing continues and there is death. But what about if the kidney fails? At what point is death then certain? When it can't process this or that? Sometimes it makes no sense when death occurs. And those who have seen it over and over in hospitals know that there's something else going on in the body that I will call death intelligence. When that which is innate sees there's suffering ahead and there's no more hope, rather than go through the suffering, there's the shut off. That's innate. That's the smart body, because it's really smart. It's also, listen, it's also an innate that's coming back in the next lifetime, because it's connected to the soul and the pineal and all it is. It is your Merkaba. Your Merkaba is the same as the last time, just like your soul is the same of the last time. You carry around different patterned DNA that has the same Merkaba as the last life. Now go figure that out. You can't. Because this is a mechanics that is multidimensional and spiritual. It is so beautiful to know that the you, the core of you, who you are, gets passed over and over. If you could really meet you in a past life, and many of you had, you meet each other. Different face, same Merkaba. Different face, same soul. Same innate. Innate knows everything about every single lifetime you've had. Innate knows you better than you know you. And when you start getting in touch with innate, this is when things start to happen, including the ability to activate the youth template. Are you listening? It's going to happen. Humanity is going to start living longer for numbers of reasons. When they start being able to activate it artificially with other fields that are quantum, there will be a rejuvenation of that which was the temple of rejuvenation. We told you it was coming back, just different looking. And the other one is you. You with you. How many times have we told you this? That the consciousness of the human being, when fine-tuned, taking on the attributes of life and mastery, will live a very long time. So, Kryon, where do stem cells fit into all of this? That's where the templates are. That's where the templates are. And the stem cells are in every single cell you have. They're still there. Even that is controversial, but that is being shown and learned. There's a fast track to stem cell technology that is being investigated. But even that is not necessary. There come a time when you use your own stem cells instead of any from any other source, because they're the ones with the template you really want. Innate. There are things coming you don't expect. When are they coming, Kryon? The answer is yes. When you allow them to come. When there's enough light on the planet, listen to me. When there's enough light on the planet where these discoveries will not be weaponized, and that's when you'll get them. You hear me? When will that be? When you create it. Dear ones, you're in a struggle right now with light and dark. You know this. When it's over and light is predominant on this planet, and that is to say that integrity starts to win over non-integrity. In business, in government, in all things, you'll start to see shifts of what people will accept and what they want. It's going to come from the people first and then trickle on to those things. That is when you start seeing these kind of things happen. They're in the works now. Some of it has actually been discovered now. I'll tell you this, because Kryon does not reveal things that are not discovered. They have to have been discovered, and they are. But typically, they're at their infancy, and it will take a long time before they are refined. But the template is there, and some are seeing it. Kryon, what will the template do? And the answer is just exactly what you think it will do. Cell rejuvenation will be almost perfect. The telomeres will not shorten. The body will not age. Kryon, this is going to create social problem, isn't it? Too many people, right? Not enough food. Can I say this one more time? Oh, how 3D of you. You'll figure out what creates babies. You'll be wiser for it. You'll figure out how to create food for the planet in multidimensional ways. Do you know what happens when you expose seeds to multidimensional energies that are benevolent? It's not a GMO. The plant itself accepts it as a benevolent sign. Just like innate with its template, do you think that the life force of plants might also have something like that? Can you imagine growing perfect crops, 5-6 times the yield, with no pesticides at all, very little fertilizer, growing on its own because it knows now, as a life force, that you need it to grow? What a concept. Is it possible that human consciousness can be even extended into plants and animals? It's just the beginning. I give you right now a glimpse into a beautiful future. And those who listen to this and those in front of me now, as human beings, are all saying the same things. Oh, it can't come too soon. Let's have it now. Oh, Kryon, win. And I want to tell you, I want you to be quiet because you're going to be there. All right? You may look a little different, but you're going to be there. Dear ones, you are an old soul and you are not done with this planet. You're going to be there. Do you hear me? I want you to get ready for it. I want you to celebrate it and know it's going to happen. I want you to see the truth in this channeling. I want your innate, right now, to check me out. Your Merkabas are powerful, and there are so many of them in the room. Check me out and feel what is there. And know that this is true. And it's yours because of what you've done and what you're doing. It's your legacy and your future. And it's about time. And so it is.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner steps away, and all that he is steps away. You might say the pure intuition of that which is connection to the other side of the veil, his soul, is what you're hearing. I use my partner's language, his intellect, and his knowledge in the channeling. Every single human who channels is unique and does it differently. My partner mentioned that a kind of channeling is in artwork. Imagine the masters and what they did and how much they did, pouring out of them the creativeness of the things that have been seen around this planet. Could it be possible that one artist could do so much or had so much? There is no limit to the creative power of a human being when they're channeling. And then you would ask, well, how do you know if you're channeling? And the answer is this. I talk to the poets who would give you the amazing prose that will fill your heart and be impactful to you and society and to the world. And they will look at it and say, I don't know where that came from. They will say, it just poured out of me and out of my heart onto the page. You'll talk to some of the best storytellers, the ones who can tell a story that's so exciting that humans can't leave it alone. And they will say, I don't know how, but it just poured out of me. Did you know that some novelists don't even block their stories in advance? It simply pours out of them as a stream of consciousness onto the page. We've spoken before of the energies of areas we visit, and we're going to do that in a moment as well. But I want to make you comfortable with what is happening here. Dear ones, I have never been human, and that gives me an advantage. And the advantage is that I look upon you and I see what you do. I marvel at the tasks before you. I marvel at the free choice that you have been able to work with. I am in love with humanity for what you have accomplished and how you have turned the corner into 2012. If you have listened to these messages before, this is a common theme. But perhaps you are here for the first time. And I will say again to you, if you are a senior here, what was the prophecy when you were growing up? And the answer was doom. My partner grew up in a world that had thousands of weapons that could be delivered in moments, pointed at his country and his country pointed at another. It was called the Cold War. There was nothing cold about it, for it was being processed into a hot one, and it would be World War III. Some who study the fractals of time, a system where time seems to repeat itself, would say that that is what humans create, and that each war is more powerful and destructive than the next. And they'd be right. And that humans never learn anything from any war, as they should. A child will burn his hand on a stove and it'll last for life. They'll never touch a stove again. But humanity doesn't seem to have that amount of logic when it comes to war. And so you repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it. Dear ones, we have spoken of this so many times, that on this planet there have been civilizations before you that are not acknowledged. because they are fully buried. There is so much evidence of this, and there will become more as time goes along. I'll tell you this, there's evidence of that right here in the ground. It's an interesting time, is it not? When you know things are buried that will tell a story. But as soon as anything is uncovered, there will be laws to keep you from uncovering anything else. It's not a conspiracy. It is simply the way humans teach and operate a science of archaeology. And there it will be, untouchable, unfindable, but tantalizing with some of the instruments that are starting to show history under the ground that shouldn't be there. I'll talk about this area in just a moment. You turned the corner about the same time that I started channeling through my partner. I arrived in 1989. If you'll take a look at what was taking place, you'll find the Soviet Union was dissolving. This particular thing was never, ever on any prophecy. It shocked even the citizens who lived there. There was no prophecy at all that said that would take place. It was a wild card, something unexpected, and it changed everything. For World War III had to involve both players, and they were on their way to playing it out. And it didn't happen. Instead, there was a beginning of a benevolence on this planet. You didn't really understand, perhaps, what was taking place. But a shift was occurring. The prophecies of the ancients told you it was coming. They told you that with free choice, you might void that end of the planet, as it would be, and move into another dimensional reality. And it is. That human nature would begin to elevate itself like it never had before. Years ago, I told you something. Long before your internet. I said, when everybody can talk to everybody, there will be no secrets. And you're looking at that today. And with the social media that you have, every country is able to look at those in other countries without politics, being able to examine what they want, greet their families, and talk long distances. Dear ones, it's made a difference. For it has started a process that you didn't expect. A process that will eventually lead to the unthinkable, depending upon how old you are. Peace on earth. You're seeing it churn through its machinations, its processes, right now. What is happening on this planet with certain countries is surprising many. Why they would do what they are doing, and the wild card that is currently leading the West. All of these things unexpected. Some are fearful. All of them are different. And that was the prophecy. And that is why I arrived, in order to facilitate information during the shift. That is the whole reason. To give you loving information about who you are. Things you might not know. A few days ago, I told a group of Italians what happens at death. Things they had never heard before. Things that I may share with you. A system that is so grand, it goes beyond anything any religious system has ever taught you on this planet. It sounds like it's very difficult to understand because it's new. And yet I've been talking about this for some years. I will review that later. But dear ones, I want you to get ready for information that perhaps you were never told. The area that you are going to study and the energies that you're going to feel are going to vary. They're not going to be the same. You may go to one area and feel the beauty of the earth, Gaia itself. You may be confronted with the legends and the mythologies of old. Some of you won't feel a thing, but it's beautiful. Others of you may be touched so much that you must stop and just feel it all. And that's because buried under the green are some of your own artifacts. You're so buried in culture, dear ones, but something draws you here. The same attributes that we speak of here were also present in another country called Ireland. But this is a little different. Now, we've spoken of the magnetic grid of the planet many times and how it actually helps carry consciousness. Now, this has been proven lately by your scientists. The crystalline grid is an esoteric grid that has no proof other than you experiencing it. The crystalline grid is a grid that remembers human consciousness. It's the reason you can stand in a battlefield and feel an energy of what took place. No matter how long ago it was, there are sensitives among you who can go to that place and perhaps even hear the battle. And we've said this before. Where does that come from? What is the system that allows that remembrance to come and be present in your consciousness? And the answer is the crystalline grid. Now, in Ireland, we told you that the crystalline grid is almost non-existent. Like other areas of the planet, such as the Bermuda Triangle, grids overlap in an odd way, and some will null each other out. That is to say, it becomes transparent, and things don't operate exactly correctly, including magnetics. We told you that Ireland was filled with that. So much that multi-dimensional aspects would show themselves. You'd have talks of the fairies and the leprechauns. Dear ones, these are manifestations of what the human psyche makes when they see something that does not fit into 4 dimensions. There is a little of that here. But here there is something else. The crystalline grid in these areas is the opposite of Ireland. It is stronger. There are places on the earth where that crystalline grid will have weakness and strength. And here there is strength. The strength of the grid means there is a constant remembrance of energy. Constant. If you see stone circles, monoliths, if you simply walk into a grassy field and they say, this is where this happened or that happened, it's because the crystalline grid was so strong, it attracted the ancients to put something there. And today you can still feel it. The question is this, not what did it mean? The question is, were you there?
The question also is, can you feel what it was about? Dear ones, as you progress through these and the ones to come in other weeks with other groups, don't try to figure it out. Instead, dispense with the intellect for a moment and simply feel what is there. Don't decide what it was, what they were trying to say. If it was a message, what if it simply was there because they felt it should be? What if it was their way of honoring symmetry on the planet? What if it was their way of building a calendar for the planet? What if it was their way of just having the energy felt? What if it was their way of sculpture? There does not need to be a reason for a statue or for a painting. It is simply there because it flows out of a culture or out of a human being to go onto the canvas. What if some of what you feel is a consciousness painting from the ancients to you now? And what if your feeling was underneath the ground that has not yet been identified, that is from another time, an unscheduled culture? And what I mean by that is that you didn't know it was there. So it's not on the schedule of the archaeologist. A mystery, a big one. And there is that everywhere here. It's an interesting place, this. I want you to remember this also. Energy does not see borders. It does not see cultures. It is part of Gaia. So it extends throughout this land and into the south. It's different here than it is there, but there are still some of the same attributes. A crystalline grid that remembers. The strength of that is so powerful, it even extends to the stamps in the grass down south. These are the things you look forward to, not the intellectual pursuit. Don't take notes. I want you to feel what you feel. Trust your intuition to tell you the grandness of what has occurred in this, an old magic land. And so it is.